enforcement division, and it later moved to the education division. And there are two main types of programs that have been offered. One is the BOW weekend, where women get together from Friday to Sunday and take a variety of skills classes over the course of that weekend to gain more experience in those outdoor recreational skills. There's also the Beyond BOW one-day workshop, which, as it says, is a one-day event that tends to focus on more specific skills. So there are some examples up there on the kinds of Beyond BOW workshops that have been offered in the past. Things like shooting sports, turkey hunting, different kinds of fishing, also fish cookery and outdoor cooking. So quite a range of outdoor offerings over the years. And in looking at the BOW program and designing this evaluation, we wanted to ask, what is the impact of BOW? We have heard of the program. We also wanted to balance that with the question, well, what is the impact of BOW? Who are we reaching? And we were interested in, are the participants doing these activities and participating in outdoor recreation after BOW? Are they continuing to use those skills and do things more independently outside the program? How do we define the impact of the program? So, we have a good balance? We can have both this camaraderie and fun and a strong program impact for outdoor recreation. So we developed an evaluation plan that pulled from several sources of data. One was to look at the BOW data that was available over the years and some selected literature on women's outdoor participation and recreation. We also, of course, wanted to get participant feedback from our past BOW participants. So we sent out a survey to those participants, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We also wanted feedback from our BOW instructors and WRC staff. So we sent a survey to staff and instructors who are volunteers from other organizations. We wanted to learn from other BOW programs. This is a worldwide program with iterations in many states. And then synthesize that information and make program recommendations. And before I talk more about the surveys, I'd like to ask Tanya to share a bit more about that learning from other BOW programs and the work that she's been doing there.
So we had a great opportunity that just was a little bit of serendipity, and we started meeting at this point over a year and a half, maybe almost. Model, and some have changed their model a little bit after they did evaluations. And we have these monthly meetings that are very informal. Sometimes someone presents on something they're working on. Sometimes it's just we pick a topic that we want to discuss. And we created a drive site where everybody can dump resources. And we have learned a ton. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 people on a call. Sometimes there's 20 people on the call. We've had invited guests come in, and that information directly impacted the choices we made for this BOW program, because many of them are in a similar boat, that they had programs that were 20, 25 years old, and they did evaluations over the last handful of years and are implementing changes. So we get to kind of use the information that they've already or their experience that they've already worked on, and are seeing if their changes are working to help build our program, which is exciting. They're still meeting. There's plans to do a women's outdoor skills programming conference in the next year or so. So that network is still a really strong one.
Great. So we'll review some of our North Carolina data. but then know that those recommendations also incorporate some of those learnings and best practices gained from other states as well. So looking at some results from the two surveys we conducted, one was for participants, and we got 220 responses for a response rate of just over a third. And 2/3 of those respondents attended a BOW weekend event at some point, and 38% of them attended a Beyond BOW one-day workshop. So some of them have attended both events. And among our instructors and staff, we had 82 responses for a response rate of around 43%. And most of those folks, 85%, were current staff, about 6% retired, and then 9% were volunteer, either instructors or volunteering in another capacity from other organizations. And so 42% of those respondents have worked between 1 and 5 BOW events, and 11% have worked more than 20 events. So a dedicated instructor corps here. One question that we wanted to ask was, do we have frequent flyers in the program? Um, it does speak highly of the program if people want to come back year after year, but then what are the implications of that? And we found that at least from this respondent group, 2/3 of them have attended 1 or 2 weekends. And then the other 1/3 have attended 3 or more of the BOW weekends. A few have participated more than 10 times in the weekend event. So that's kind of the breakdown of repeat participation, which was interesting for us. We also asked how they heard about BOW, and that's reflected in the chart on the right. And most of the respondents had heard from a friend. And the second most frequent response was from our website. And so those circles in blue there for friend, family, and staff member, coworker, that's our word of mouth transmission. So that's interesting for us to see what percentage hear from word of mouth, and what implications does that have when we're thinking about recruiting participants for this program. So we also wanted to assess, is there a need for women-specific programming? That's one of the questions we asked our respondents. How important is it for you to have women-specific programming? And for this respondent group, it was very important to 76% of them and somewhat important to 14%. Um, and when asked to elaborate why, here's one example of what someone said. Because many women new to the outdoors are hesitant to participate in a co-ed situation for fear of the unknown and or being laughed at. They're much more comfortable trying new things, even making mistakes in front of other women, as typically there is no perceived judgment. Teaching women these skills in a women-only environment helps build their confidence, and they will share with others, especially their kids, the future of the outdoors. And so this participant group is one to which women's programming already appealed. So maybe this isn't too surprising that they found that very important. But in some of their qualitative feedback, these were common themes that they liked the safety of the environment. It was comfortable. It was supportive rather than overly competitive. So there were lots of consistent themes in this data set about the importance of women's only programming for this group. We asked them what kinds of things they do outdoors, and most of them said hiking, followed by paddle sports, wildlife watching, and also fishing. So in orange are kind of highlighted these licensed activities, fishing, hunting, and trapping, but you can see there's a pretty big range of activities here. We also asked them how important BOW was for introducing them to these outdoor activities and having continued participation. So the blue bars represent that activity being very important, and then it goes to orange for not at all important. And we find that BOW was very important in introducing these participants to shooting sports in particular. We have archery and target shooting coming out at the top there, followed by maintaining wildlife habitat, fishing, and motorized boating. So that's interesting for us that we can see how BOW has helped people get more involved in different kinds of shooting sports. We also asked them about barriers to continuing their participation. And we found some of those key barriers to be a lack of time, a lack of companions and social support, and a lack of safety in doing these activities were key barriers. Not enough time is a common problem, and we might not be able to do something about that. But if we can help reduce or mitigate these other barriers, maybe that would help people find more time for some of these activities. Um, we found that nobody to go with me was a significant barrier, not feeling safe going alone, and then some other questions like not knowing what equipment is needed, not knowing how to use firearms. So some of those are things that can be addressed through programming and thinking more about social supports. And some quotes on key barriers identified. Several of our respondents talked about the need for more mentorship. This person said, I would be interested in hunting, but I feel like I need more one on one support with that and to learn more information. I do feel confident doing things like hiking and camping alone. So, hunting is an activity that does have a higher barrier to entry in terms of knowledge, equipment, and things like that than some other activities. Um, so, that need for mentorship is present. Another theme was taking knowledge and skills to the next level, being able to get beyond that introductory level. So this person says, lack of knowledge of firearms is a barrier to hunting for me. I've always gone with others who have all the equipment. I love fishing, but would like more experience and knowledge to feel more confident on my own or taking friends. So we're giving that introductory information, which you have to have, but then how can our participants advance their skills to be able to feel more confident to go out on their own? And we got a mix of feedback, including some constructive feedback on ways to improve. And as an example, this person says, I think NC Wildlife and BOW should make connections and partnerships with related businesses in these disciplines to help people network across the state, because a day or weekend isn't enough to master any of it. It's a great intro, but then it would be nice to go home with a packet of where we can find the things we really enjoyed or want to do more local to wherever we are. So this is great information. We have this program put together, these resources and skills, but then are there ways that we can help people make connections in their local area to increase their chances of building social support and continuing to learn these skills? So we asked both our participants and our instructors and staff if they thought BOW was meeting its main goal. And we define that as reducing barriers for women to become involved in outdoor recreation and provide a supportive environment for women to acquire and cultivate outdoor interests and skills. So 78% of our participant respondents strongly agree that the program is meeting that goal. And about 44% of staff strongly agree. A few more of the staff were unsure, but we did get a lot of feedback on how to better meet that goal through the program from both instructors and participants. And these are the overlapping themes that emerged from that data from the suggestions from both our instructors and participants. One was to focus on advertising and recruiting. If we do recruit through word of mouth, have repeat participants, is there anything we can do to increase our reach? Another suggestion was to retain more participants through skill building, giving them that chance to further develop. The third theme was to increase social supports, to expand the opportunities that might be geographically, that might be the type of opportunity, and then also to increase women instructors and mentors for the program. So I'm going to turn it over to Tanya, who's going to talk about how those pieces of the puzzle got put together.
So the great thing about us being able to do an evaluation and then compare it to what other states saw in their evaluations is that there were more similarities than differences. In fact, most things were pretty similar in the feedback from instructors and participants. And that is somewhat because the BOW framework used to be very scripted in how you designed your programs, what topics were covered, the Beyond BOWs, the weekends, all of that was done very similarly. If you had a BOW program, it looked pretty similar in your state as this, to another program in another state. So that allowed us to kind of, like Amy's mentioning, to kind of pull all these pieces from other states and just add to or kind of give more credibility, to the things that we were seeing. So we feel pretty good about what the changes we're making. And some of those things are to emphasize an active learning environment, meaning there is less interest in having just presentations. This is about skill building and being engaged and being outdoors. So most of the classes are going to be done outdoors and have some hands-on component. And the way we're going to evaluate that, or the way we're going to kind of ensure that's happening, is instructors are going to be writing a lesson plan of sort. And I've created a template that every instructor will complete for a class, and that serves a bunch of purposes, but does allow us to set some standards on what we want to have happen in each class. We want participants to continue the skills they're learning after a BOW. One thing that was pretty consistent around amongst all the states' evaluations is that women were saying things like, well, no, I don't do that on my own, but I just come back for another BOW weekend and I do it again there. And I'm getting better, but once a year over a weekend is not the intention of the program. We want women to be able to get the confidence they need and the skills they need to do this on their own, and hopefully recruit other women to participate in those activities with them. And part of that is building this community of women for social support. You saw some of those barriers in the other slides. Some of it's safety, some of it's not knowing where to go or what to do, just not wanting to go by yourself, wanting other people to go with. So BOW is, we want the new program to help build that community outside of the weekend or day events that they're attending. So some of those components are maintaining it as women's programming, modifying the logistics of how we do that programming, and I'll explain more in just a minute on that. As Amy mentioned, broadening our reach. So working really hard to make sure that it's not only friends who are sharing with other friends, which word of mouth will always be a primary way information gets shared, but we want to use all the social media resources and all the other types of resources we have to help more women in more areas of North Carolina know about the program. We are implementing a skills-based track system, which I'll explain more about in a minute. And then also hopefully creating a pathway for participants to eventually become instructors or at least assistant instructors if they would like to come back to additional BOW weekends. Go to the next slide. So the new name is Outdoor Skills Academy, or you might hear it called Women's Outdoor Skills Academy, specific to this programming that is for women. And you can, yep, there we go. So as I mentioned, we're maintaining women's programming, and within that women's programming, we hope to create deliberate mentor-mentee networking opportunities. There are lots of big and little ways that we hope to do that, but be a little more intentional about the day and weekend events, having opportunities for women to see other women who live near them, even just a map on the wall, and you plot where you are. So you can see if someone is near you or close enough to you that you can meet up for activities. This opportunity for women to push through to being an assistant instructor or instructor also means that those women know there is an opportunity for them to become a mentor at some point, and that might encourage them to work a little bit harder at that skill if it's something they would like to do. Then they have that goal to reach for. And we have primarily had a mix of male and female instructors, and that will certainly be the case for some time. But we hope to be able to recruiting more. We hope to be able to recruit more female instructors as time goes on, and women will see themselves, potentially more similar to instructors if there are women instructors teaching or assistant instructors. And that doesn't mean that we don't need male instructors as well, because we do. Please, if you're interested, don't sell yourself out because you're a male if you'd like to help, but just know that that's a goal we have long term. Okay. Broadening our reach. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. Obviously, we have more opportunities through our social media than we had in the past. So that's low-hanging fruit, and we have support from CMDE to help us, and they already have helped us get the word out, just with the last event we had this past week. But we'd like to do some intentional advertising and recruiting when a program is set up in an area. For example, we can use some of the apps like Nextdoor that sort of target an area and help, push the information out that is more localized to that area, programming that's more localized to that area. There's some opportunities for pre-event support. And the picture on the left is a program called Bridges to BOW that Arizona does. The Wildlife Federation has their BOW program, and they work with women. In this case, they work with women, minority women, to help them meet each other and find support in multiple Zoom meetings. And there's multiple ways that they're kind of meeting up and creating a sense of community before the BOW weekend. And that might include transportation, whatever is needed to help them transition into, let's be honest, what has primarily been white females in these events. So we know we want more diversity. We know North Carolina is more diverse than that too. So those are some examples of programs that we would like to try to implement as well. We have had a scholarship program in the past, and we hope to continue that. And then more intentional efforts to improve accessibility, and that hopefully you will see that in the descriptions of the programs, of the classes for each program. We are being very deliberate in what information is shared in the description about if there's going to be a hike or on uneven ground, if you're using a bow, how you might physically need to be able to handle a bow. And then we ask in the emails that we send out as people register, if they need modifications, what can we do to help them? So it isn't that we weren't trying to be accessible before, but we are trying to be more intentional, more obviously, and intentional in helping women feel that there shouldn't be at least physical barriers, if we can help it, to them participating. And we are looking at camps deliberately that can offer us modifications for people who might need it. So the skills-based tracks, this is we cheated and we're using Kansas's model that they revamped when they did their evaluation, and they've been using it for a couple of years and are finding a lot of success with it. And that model is to create tracks. So instead of the BOW model was when you came to a weekend event and you had classes all weekend long, you just picked whatever you wanted. And there might be a theme and there might not, but you didn't have an intentional set of skills you were working on for that weekend. It was just, what you were interested in. We are going to implement tracks that we ask women to choose. So if they've never been to a BOW or a Outdoor Skills Academy weekend before, then they would have the option to take a track or not, because we're not going to ask someone to choose a fishing track all weekend if they don't even know if they like fishing. So first time they get some leeway. But if they would like to come back, then we're going to ask them to pick a track. And the 4 tracks are fishing, hunting, shooting, sports, and conservation. And we will build out the classes so that most of the classes they would be taking over the weekend would be within that track. That doesn't mean they're shooting for 16 hours over 3 days, but within a shooting sports track, there would be other classes to support the skill set of shooting sports. And that could be safety, it could be cleaning equipment, could be, looking at different types of equipment or gear specific to women for that track. So, and that doesn't mean that they don't get other classes as well. There'll be evening classes, and there'll be some tracks where, or some time frames where we intentionally build in just other topics, because it doesn't have to be quite so rigorous that there's nothing outside of their track. But most of what they're taking will be in that track. Okay. So the instructor pathway is, again, all of these, the skills track, the instructor pathway. We don't want women to continue to come back year after year after year after year, expecting that we are doing the work for them to build their skills. We want them to have buy-in to the program so that either they're continuing to come back and support us, because most of the staff and instructors are volunteering their time over the weekend or the day events. So we want more people to support that system. And we want them to have some accountability in the skills that they're learning to use those skills. And whether that is within an outdoor skills program or whether that is outside of the Outdoor Skills Academy altogether. So there would be volunteer and assistant instructor positions and instructor positions. And we are letting women know that the assistant instructor positions do not have to be experts, but they have a little more time with that skill than the participants. So if you have been in the skills track for shooting sports and you've had quite a bit of time with shooting a shotgun, then you might choose to assist with the introduction to shotgun class. You're not teaching it, you don't have that skill set yet, maybe, but you are feeling more comfortable in helping women um, get ready to shoot, for example, and help them find a gun that matches their size or, what they're looking for before the instructors then show them how to shoot. So it can build. And, the more that you get to be an assistant instructor, the more skills you're building yourself and helping teach others. Past participants can apply, but brand new volunteers can apply too. And we will just be kind of vetting their skill set. For the shooting sports, there's a lot of vetting to make sure the instructors are have the skill set they need and the way of teaching shooting that we want. But there are a lot of classes that have flexibility and allowing people to talk with us about what they want to teach and then create that lesson plan, and they can be brand new volunteers. And then actually, I think that's everything for that slide. So we'll go on to the next one. So modifying the logistics is not only in the skills track and this effort to encourage women to come back and take on another role in the day event or the weekend event, but it also is modifying the timing and the course length and locations and things like that. So if you're familiar with the old model, we did the weekend event pretty much the same weekend every year, and we rotated mostly between 2 camps. There are lots of reasons that worked really well, but our goal is to vary that. So this year, we'll have our weekend event in October, but we hope that next year it's not going to be in October. We might adjust that a little bit and it'll be in a new location. And our goal is to have day events that we're calling skill set samplers right now. I'll give you a little more detail about that in a minute, that are just teasers of learning, kind of introduction to some classes that might fall within those tracks. There'll also be one-day events that are specific to a skill, just like the Beyond BOWs. It might be a dove hunt, it might be fishing, etc. And then the weekend events. And all of those events, we hope to have them multiple times a year in new locations, kind of constantly changing that up so that more women don't have to travel as far. We had women saying, well, it was always in these two locations, and that's always a 4-hour drive for me. So we want to change that up. Having day events, of course, gives us more flexibility in the locations that we can choose. Weekend events are harder because we need lodging and food. Um, so those, we might end up with a handful of locations that we rotate for weekend events, but we do need new locations. So if you know of sites, you can send them our way. The course length in the past was 3 to 4 hours. And in some cases, that's needed. In other cases, we don't need 3 to 4 hours. So we are changing the course length to be an hour and a half. And then if we need to put 2 sessions together for a course and we use 3 hours, then we can do that too. But that gives us a little bit more variety in how we're offering the classes. They get more classes over a weekend, and that's the model we're currently using for the day events, an hour and a half. And that seems to be pretty popular amongst the BOW programs in other states as well. We always need partnerships, and that is volunteers, that's companies, that's nonprofits, they're anyone who's willing to support the program. And what we want to see happen is that programs can happen without commission staff always needing to host it or support it 100%. So for example, there is a long-standing partnership with Wake County Wildlife Club, and they offer a shooting sports event, have for many years, and they run it themselves basically. We support on the back end of helping get registration up in the branch system. I've already spoken with them about their August event this year, and we've made sure it aligns with the new Outdoor Skills Academy standards that we're looking for, and evaluation process and all of that. But it doesn't have to be us all of the time. And we want that to happen. We want women who attend BOW or attend the Outdoor Skills Academy to then help programming happen in their communities. And we want to empower them to feel like they can find partners in their community, whether that's outfitters or camps or other facilities who will host even just a half a day event. It just gives more opportunities to more women when we can put events closer to them. And then we've already talked about broadening our advertising reach. Next one, Amy. So last couple slides are just about the timeline and what's happening right now, what's on the schedule. So up to this point, we have done all the evaluation and rebranding. We are getting help doing a marketing campaign, and we are currently recruiting instructors and volunteers. And I'll explain which events we specifically need help with. We are doing teasers, the skill set samplers right now, and I'll give you those dates. And then our weekend for this year is going to be in October. Next slide. So this is the exciting part. We just completed the first event on June 3rd at the mountain training facility for the Forest Service up in Crossnor. We had 16 ladies, and we had 4 classes, introduction to shotgun, introduction to turkey calling, a basic fishing class, and then a field craft class where they learned about birding and using the iNaturalist app and eBird and a couple of other apps. And We spent all day, and the classes were an hour and a half, and we provided lunch. The event was free, and like I said, we had 16 women. Our goal for these skill set samplers is to have about 40 max, 40 participants max. So for the first event that we all kind of scrambled to get the word out a little bit late, 16 was pretty good. And free is good and bad because it means that people feel like they can back out at the last minute, but it also made it accessible to a lot of women who wouldn't have traveled all the way to Crossnor. Many of them did not come from the mountains. They were from even, pretty far east and spent the time to come up to do the event with us. The next event is the Wake County Wildlife Club shooting skills event that I mentioned earlier, and they do have a lot of staff and volunteers that help with that event, so they do not need additional assistance from us. That one right now is full. Registration is on our website, which we'll give to you in a minute, I think. But if you want it now, it's ncwildlife.gov/WOSA, Women's Outdoor Skills Academy. And all of this information and more details about each class are on that website. So I think they still have the waiting list open, but it has been full for a while. And then the next skill set sampler is at the Peckman Center, and that's September 6th. And the 4 classes are going to be archery, introduction to deer hunting, fishing, and backyard habitat, and building bluebird boxes. I think we have all the volunteers we need for that, but if you're interested, let me know and we can double check. I do still need a few volunteers for October 4th. YMCA Campaigns is in King, North Carolina, so a little bit north of Winston-Salem. And we have hunting, safety, and regs as one of the classes, introduction to shotgun, fly fishing, and then habitat conservation are the 4 classes. Registration is still open for that, and it is not full. So I think we're maybe halfway there or close to it. So spread the word on that one. And then the last event this year is the weekend event. And that one is going to be at Millstone. So the Lentz shooting range and Millstone 4-H camp, October 24th through 26th. And I still need instructors. We're building out the classes right now. I need assistant instructors and I need general volunteers for that. Registration is not open yet because we're still building out the classes, but we hope to have registration up here in the next month or so is my goal. Next, Amy. So as I mentioned, we still need help with the weekend event at Millstone and possibly 1 or 2 for campaigns. We need ideas for 2026 host sites, and that can be a half a day fly tying event, but it can also be weekend camps. I'm creating a list now. We have lots of partners. It's not that we don't know what's out there, but you likely know places that I don't know. So I would love to get your feedback on that. We also would like for you to spread the word. So I mentioned the website already, ncwildlife.gov/WOSA. That has the events. It also has a link to volunteer. So if someone would like to volunteer, they just fill out the application, and I'm adding them to a list of people who are interested in volunteering at whatever level they want to help. And then those people get directly emailed by me to say, I need assistance in these areas. Next slide. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. So we will take questions.
Okay, thank you. That was great. I'm so excited. These programs seem really fun. So one question, as people take a minute and drop their questions in the chat, I will get one started. I know you mentioned that the one that you just had was free. What is the typical cost associated with these weekends or skills academies?
It ranges. So had we charged, the 3 skill set samplers are going to be free this year. Whether that can always be the case, we're still figuring that out. But typically day events, you're paying for a site fee and for lunch. So that's been 20, 25, $30 a person if we need to charge for that. And then the weekend events, honestly, are all over the place. The other states have been telling me their prices are having to increase because food has gone up so much. So I've heard everything from 150 if it is a agency owned facility. So some of the costs are, they don't have to incur the same, to $300 or more. So it can be significant. We are going to do our best to keep those costs down. We are still working out the costs with Millstone.
Okay, great. I mean, yeah, $25 to $30 for a day event that's a pretty good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so another question. How do you have, can you elaborate more on your thoughts on how you can continue to foster mentorship relationships with these women that are coming as first timers? I know you mentioned a platform that allows people to see who else is nearby them, but like, how would they know if that person is capable of mentoring them, or if it's another person that also needs mentorship?
So some of that is going to be, we don't know yet, and we're going to create it as women tell us, what they're interested in. What I have seen other states doing that they feel is working well is something as simple as at an event, especially the weekend event, putting a map on the wall, having everybody come and put their name and maybe email address or phone number if they're comfortable, and just plotting it. And then if it's in the dining hall and you're there all weekend and you're, coming by, then you can track each other down and figure out who's near you. So something as kind of grassroots and simple as that. Also, social media can be super helpful. And women have been creating their own sort of social media pages in other states that are not run by the agency, but are just, kind of popping up, or group me or remind me, or any of the ways that people can have group chats. And we're just encouraging them to start that conversation, and they can connect that way. Um, Formally, we are hoping that in that track system, if you are in a track there, we don't think there are going to be, we think the women are going to tend to be in the same classes together. So if you're in a track all weekend, you're not just in one class with one person one time, you're getting to see that person over multiple classes and bonding over building your skill set. So we hope that also kind of makes an opportunity where women will just on their own, pair up. Oh yeah, I don't get this, but you seem to be getting it. Can you help me? So it's a mix of things.
Great, thank you. So I have one last question. Again, if anybody has anything they would like to ask Amy or Tanya, feel free to drop that in now. But I was wondering if we have any kind of do we track women that have come to these skills academies and are learning these skills, and if they end up buying licenses for hunting or fishing?
So that's the reason for doing the registration system in Brant. That is the system we use. But when they register in Brant, they're given the WRC number, just like if you buy a license. And then that allows us, if you've never been into the Brant site on the programming side, you can pull up a participant and see what programs they're registered for. And then that same number also shows whether they have a license or not.
And I can also add,
go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have a slide about this, but of our survey respondents, about 40% had a current fishing license and 17% had a current hunting license. And 51% of them had a fishing license within the last 5 years, and 20% had a hunting license within the last 5 years. So I think the Go Outdoor system will allow us to be able to improve that tracking over time.
And we typically do fishing waivers if we have an adult fishing event. The fishing class we just did at Crossnor, we had a waiver for that, so women did not have to have a fishing license. But if there is a hunting event that we're doing, they will need to get a license to do that event. So just registering and coming to the event means that they're buying a license.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And everyone, join us next month when we are going to have Kelsey Roberts and Catherine Jewell. They're going to be presenting a presentation titled, I'm looking for the title right now, sorry, here we go. Let's tackle this together, incorporating social science into fisheries management. So we look forward to that. All right, have a great day, everyone.